Badiraguato, Sinaloa, January 19, 2026. Before sunrise, the Mexican National Guard, the Army, and the Air Force move on a compound hidden in the mountains that gave birth to the Sinaloa Cartel itself. Inside, they find a working synthetic drug lab, firearms, vehicles, and a 40-year-old man Mexican officials call the leader of a faction linked to the Beltran Leyva organization. His street name is Manticas. 7 of his associates are captured with him. What investigators do not fully understand yet is that they have just pulled the lid off one of the last hidden pillars still holding up the Chapitos' entire fentanyl empire. 3 weeks later, in a courtroom thousands of miles north, an American prosecutor unseals a federal indictment that names this same man as a major producer behind the supply chain poisoning American cities. His real name is Iván Valerio Sainz Salazar, and for 3 years, prosecutors say he was one of the most important men the sons of El Chapo had. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a fentanyl cook operating out of the mountains of Sinaloa became indispensable to the men who inherited the world's most dangerous drug empire. You will see how millions of lethal pills moved from his labs into the hands of dealers across the United States. You will hear what happened when Mexican and American law enforcement finally closed in. And you will learn why this arrest lands at the exact moment the Chapitos' own leadership is collapsing from the inside. Stay until the end, because the final piece of this story explains why federal prosecutors call this case bigger than one man's arrest. If you want to understand exactly how the modern cartel supply chain actually works, hit subscribe right now, because we track every one of these operations as they unfold. Let's start with who the Chapitos actually are. After Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán was convicted in 2019 and sentenced to life without parole in a maximum security American prison, his empire did not disappear. It split. A faction of his sons, known across law enforcement as the Chapitos, took control of a major piece of the Sinaloa Cartel's operations. Prosecutors say these brothers did something their father never fully committed to. They pushed hard into fentanyl, cheaper to produce than heroin, more addictive, and devastatingly easy to smuggle in small quantities with massive profit margins. Under the Chapitos, prosecutors allege the cartel built a pipeline that funneled tens of thousands of kilograms of drugs into the United States every single year. But an operation at that scale needs more than leadership. It needs producers, people who can actually manufacture the product at industrial volume, hidden deep enough in cartel territory that nobody can touch them. That is exactly the role prosecutors say Iván Valerio Sainz Salazar filled. According to the indictment, Sainz Salazar served as a key fentanyl producer for the Chapitos from roughly 2022 through 2025. 3 years. Prosecutors allege he helped manufacture millions of pills during that stretch, arranged drug transactions under armed protection, and operated labs that eventually became central to the group's entire fentanyl production network. Every one of those pills was designed to look exactly like a legitimate prescription: oxycodone, Xanax, Percocet. Except instead of a measured pharmaceutical dose, each pill carried an unpredictable, often lethal amount of fentanyl. A drug so potent that federal agencies estimate a single kilogram contains roughly 500,000 potentially fatal doses. Sainz Salazar was not moving grams. He was allegedly running a production operation built to manufacture at a scale that could supply an entire nation's black market, and he did not do it quietly. Investigators say his operation relied on armed enforcers using military-grade weapons to protect the labs, the trafficking routes, and the leadership above him. This was not a hidden kitchen operation, it was infrastructure. A fixed point in the Chapitos supply chain that, until January 19th, nobody outside the cartel could reach. Type yes in the comments if you had no idea a single producer could be responsible for millions of pills reaching American streets. Now here is how it finally came apart. Mexican authorities had been building toward this moment for months. On the morning of the raid, National Guard units backed by the Army and Air Force moved into Badiraguato, a rural municipality in the Sinaloa Mountains that is, quite literally, the birthplace of the cartel that bears its name. Mexico's Secretary of Security, Omar Garcia Harfuch, confirmed the operation publicly within hours. 8 men taken into custody, firearms recovered, vehicles seized, and at the center of it all, a synthetic drug production center, the physical lab where prosecutors say Sainz Salazar helped turn precursor chemicals into millions of counterfeit pills. Garcia Harfuch called him the leader of a faction linked to the Beltran Leyva organization, a signal that the lines between rival cartel factions in this region have blurred into something closer to a single interconnected supply network. The investigation, officials confirmed, remains ongoing. This was not the end of the operation. It was the exposure of one piece of it. 3 weeks after the raid, on February 5th, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed the federal indictment against him. The charges are severe by design: conspiring to import fentanyl into the United States, conspiring to distribute it domestically. Each of those counts alone carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years in federal prison, with a maximum sentence of life. But it is the weapons charges that make this case exceptional. Sainz Salazar is also charged with using and possessing machine guns and destructive devices in connection with the drug conspiracy. One of those weapons counts carries a mandatory minimum of 30 years with a maximum sentence of life. A related conspiracy charge carries a maximum of life as well. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton did not soften the language when the charges were announced. He called Sainz Salazar a major producer behind the Chapitos supply chain and said fentanyl kills, and violent dealers in fentanyl have to be taken off the streets at every level of the production and distribution chain. Not just the leadership at the top, the producers who make the mass-scale manufacturing possible in the first place. Here is why the timing of this case matters more than it might look on the surface. This arrest did not happen in isolation. It landed in the middle of what is turning into the total unraveling of the Chapitos command structure. Just weeks before Sainz Salazar's indictment was unsealed, Joaquín Guzmán Lopez, one of El Chapo's sons, pleaded guilty in a Chicago federal courtroom to drug trafficking and continuing criminal enterprise charges, admitting his role overseeing drugs moved into the United States, much of it through underground tunnels. That plea followed a nearly identical agreement reached months earlier by his brother, Ovidio Guzmán Lopez, on trafficking and money laundering charges. Two of the men who inherited their father's empire have now stood in American courtrooms and admitted, on the record, to running it. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez was arrested back in July of 2024 alongside longtime cartel figure Ismael El Mayo Zambada after the two landed on a private jet in Texas, a capture that stunned even veteran cartel investigators. And now, with the top of the organization already collapsing under federal pressure, prosecutors have reached down into the production layer itself and pulled out the man they say kept the pills actually flowing. Drop a comment if you think this signals the beginning of the end for the Chapitos' operation, or if you think another producer is already stepping in to replace him. Because here is the uncomfortable truth investigators keep repeating. Removing one producer, even a major one, does not shut down a fentanyl pipeline built on precursor chemicals shipped internationally and distributed across an entire cartel network. It creates a vacancy, and in an operation manufacturing millions of pills a year, vacancies get filled fast, often by someone federal agents have never heard of, operating out of a lab agents do not yet know exists. That is the pattern investigators have watched play out again and again across the last several years of this fentanyl crisis, arrest after arrest chipping away at an empire that keeps rebuilding itself in the mountains just out of reach. So here is exactly where things stand right now. Iván Valerio Sainz Salazar remains in Mexican custody following his arrest on January 19th, with a U.S. federal indictment now formally unsealed and prosecutors pursuing charges that carry a realistic possibility of life in an American federal prison. 7 of his associates remain in custody alongside him, with Mexican officials confirming the broader investigation into his network is still active. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez and Ovidio Guzmán Lopez, the two Chapitos brothers who built the empire Sainz Salazar allegedly supplied, have both pleaded guilty in American federal courts and are awaiting sentencing that could keep them behind bars for the rest of their lives. Their father, El Chapo, remains exactly where he has been since 2019, in a maximum security American prison, serving life without parole, watching from a cell as the empire he built gets dismantled piece by piece by the sons who inherited it and the producers who kept it running underneath them. This is what the modern fentanyl war actually looks like. Not one dramatic arrest that ends the crisis overnight, but a slow, grinding campaign against a supply chain with dozens of interchangeable pieces, each one capable of manufacturing enough poison to kill hundreds of thousands of people. Mexican soldiers walked into a mountain compound in Badiraguato looking for a fugitive, and they found the machinery behind millions of counterfeit pills instead. Two of El Chapo's sons have already admitted, under oath, exactly how their father's empire kept running. And the man prosecutors say helped keep the pills flowing through all of it is now facing the same choice every one of them eventually faces: fight the charges in an American courtroom or spend what is left of his life trying not to. If you want to know whether Sainz Salazar gets extradited to face these charges on American soil, and what happens when investigators finally identify who steps into the vacancy he left behind, subscribe. We are tracking this case as it develops. If this gave you the full picture of how deep this network actually runs, you already know what to do.